I think now would be a difficult time, wouldn't it be? Well, it's always a difficult time, but especially now too. Like say you have to go into quarantine and you miss your last classes, you miss all, I mean, you'll have to do your final exams some other way. All right, before I forget, I've got your homework returned, and I did want to say that in both RL Skills class and this class, I have, well, in RL Skills, I dropped your lowest grade. So if your grade looks like it's a smidge boosted, that's why, and that's what you currently have. And in this class, I dropped your 2 lowest grades. So again, if your overall course grade in Canvas looks a little boosted, that's why. And that'll tell you basically exactly what you have going into the exam because there are no more quizzes or assignments in this class. The last thing you have is the exam. Okay? And if it's not posted there, then I don't know what is, but you know, I try to stay current with everything so I don't fall too far behind. Okay, so that's there for you. Now, just as a reminder, in this class, the final exam is Tuesday, November 24th at 8 in the morning. Yeah, again, I don't know how they make the final exam schedule or whatnot, but it seems like some years there's just some real doozies. So Tuesday, November 24th, this should be from 8 to 10 in the morning. And you probably, I'm expecting you will not need the whole time because this is not a comprehensive or cumulative final. It's just actually a final mostly on the form that we've been dealing with. So it's not designed to be like 12 pages long or anything like that. If we have a more normal semester next semester, I can give you a comprehensive final for Theory 4, but that's a long ways away. I don't even know what next semester is going to be like. You know, it seems like, you know, the news says everything is spiking. You know, I don't even know if we'll be able to be here in person. I mean, they say we are, but you never know. So, anyway, so that's what this is. And I don't think that, I mean, just the fact that it's early, that makes it a bad time. But otherwise, I don't think the day makes it a bad time or anything like the RL Skills final is. How many final exams are you guys averaging this? Do you have like 4 or 5 more?
Are you counting like ones that we did earlier? Like we did our projecting yesterday.
Let's not count those. Let's count just final or exams that you have during final exam week.
3.
3, 4? You have how many?
6. I have 5.
I have 6.
3, and they're all on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, all of mine are on Tuesday and Wednesday. Do you know if you have like, is it like if you have more than 3 finals on the same day, can you get one of them moved? Or, yeah, there's something like if you have too many on one day, you can petition to take one of them on another separate time. I thought that was a thing. Don't quote me on this. But I mean, you'd have to go to, I don't know if it's the department chair or the dean or something. I don't know. There's got to be some way, because you know you can't take 4 or 5 finals all if they were all on the same day. That's too. I mean, even I'm not that. Okay. All right, so that takes care of the pleasantries. Now, I need you, if you haven't already, I need you to take out your final exam review. This review has, as you probably saw, it has 3 pieces, one of which is in the textbook, but it has 3 pieces to graph, to analyze, perform. Then it has some short answer questions towards the end of the 3rd page. And then it has some graph interpretation on the last page of the review. Don't you love, when you took, I don't know, is it the ACT or whatever? Do you ever have like things like questions where like, let's see if you can understand or study here and understand this map, you know? Do you ever have a question like, oh, well, it's weird. I'm like, are you kidding? No, I didn't see that. Okay, but let's start then on the first page. We've got a Haydn Piano Sonata in C major, our favorite key. It is a minuet and it's 16 measures long. And I should have this one queued up and ready to play for you. So we'll listen to it first and then we'll go ahead and graph it and find out the form. We'll do that for all these. By the way, I'm not fully in a rush here because since this isn't like a comprehensive final exam review, if I don't finish this review today, that's fine. We have Friday still. Whatever questions you have, please do ask them. Take the time. I think we have the space and the time for it. So follow along in your score there on your review, and I'll get this one hopefully started from the beginning. So when you are looking at a form or a piece of passage of music like this, one of the first decisions you have to make is, how many phrases do I hear? How long are the phrases? That kind of thing. And the answer to both of those questions happens to be 4 in this case. There are 4 phrases. Each of the phrases is nice and neatly 4 measures long, so that we get a grand total of 16 measures for the whole passage, for the whole piece. Okay, so what you would do, obviously, start your graph out by showing the 4 phrases. Again, not required, but I get in the habit of, especially if I have repeat signs, I like to put those in my graph so I can see the parts, the main parts of the piece. Start labeling the beginning measure numbers of the phrases. And since every phrase is 4 measures long, this goes with, I think somebody had asked one class about, are the beginning measure numbers of phrases usually odd numbers? Yes, they are, usually. Maybe not all the time, but usually they are. So 1, 5, 9, 13, those are the downbeats, first downbeats in each phrase. Labeling the phrases with lowercase letters. If I label the first phrase A, what would you label the second phrase? B, that's right, I would. It sounds different. Then label, going to this phrase, starting at measure 9 through 12, what would you label this one? Okay, I would too. A prime. And how about the last phrase? B what? Yeah, B prime. Yeah, that's the exact labels I would have. Okay, then you'd have to look at some keys. You'd have to look at some cadences. And again, if I don't have any of the harmonies listed at the ends of the phrases like the book or the author does, you probably have to spend just a little time doing some analysis. What is the home key or the original main key of this piece? C. By the way, I'll just put it right here. The first cadence, which is in measure 4, I have a 5 chord or a half cadence in C. You see the left hand is G, D, G. And there's a B in the measure, it's just followed by preceded by an accident passing tone. Now, again, you probably have to listen to this again. And by the way, I should mention, I will be playing the pieces for you that are on the final exam. If there's time, I'll play maybe each of them 3 times so you can hear them. But this phrase, the second phrase right here, is actually all in the dominant key. It's in the key of G major. And you can see F sharp right away in measure 5, top voice, measure 6, top voice, things like that. Okay. So in the key of G, it actually terminates with a PAC, just not in the home key, just not in the original key. Okay. Then after the repeat sign, the third phrase is back in C major. And it stays in C major from here to the end. So I have a half cadence in C here, and I have a PAC in C here. Now what remains for me to do is to start thinking about graphing and labeling the large form. The large form. Do I have, is this one of those pieces that we've become so accustomed to? Is it one of those pieces where we get some music, we get contrasting material, and then we get return of opening material? No, it's not one of those statement, contrast, return things. Basically what it is it's statement, and then it's kind of like a modified repetition of that statement. So I'm not going to give my large form, it's not going to be large A, large B, large A. That's for statement, contrast, return. What kind of uppercase labels can I give it? If I give this one capital A, what should I label this second part? Yeah, A prime, that's what I would do. I can't even label it B. Because if you look at the labels of these two phrases, they're practically identical to these two phrases. So my overall form is going to be capital A prime. Now, do we know a form that has those meanings? Well, we're not worried about three-part statement, contrast, return. We're not worried about rounded binary, ternary, or anything. How many main parts are in this form? 2, which means it has to be what?
Simple binary.
Okay, it has to be binary, yes, and you are right, that it's going to be simple binary, not rounded, of course. Because rounded binary is some kind of ABA. So I know it's binary, and it's not ABA, it's just AA, so it's going to be simple binary. And the only other term I need to describe it now is whether it is sectional or continuous. Where do I look for that information? Right here, right at the end of the first large A section. I have a tonic chord here, but it's not in the home key. So should my term be sectional or continuous? It should be continuous. Only when I have a tonic chord in the home key, the original key, does that close off this section and make the whole form sectional. Okay, so I want you to have a clear distinction in your mind between what makes something sectional and what makes a form continuous. Because, I mean, those terms are going to have to show up for every label, for every piece you graph, right? So there's a fair amount of points involved just in knowing the difference between those two. So my final answer for this is it is a continuous simple binary. Before I leave simple binary, what's another label that we can get besides AA prime that would represent simple binary? In terms of large uppercase letters. That's right, AB. Simple binary is always either AB or AA prime. You can't call it ternary or rounded because you don't have another A at the end. And here you don't even have any big B in the middle contrasting. So on the test, if you come up with a form where your two large uppercase letters are either A prime, or AB, then the form is going to be simple binary. Simple binary. There's one other thing I didn't answer yet on the first page. It asks you to identify the form of the A section. That's this right here. Do you remember the terms for periods? Oh, I already told you it's a period, I shouldn't do it. What type of period are the first two phrases? Contrasting and progressive. That's right. So So the A section turns out to be a contrasting progressive period. And again, as I always say, don't forget the word period. Because that's like saying that this marker is a blue. A blue what? Right. Don't forget the noun. Okay. Questions about this hiding piece on your review? Okay. Moving right along then, we'll go to the next piece, which is a Schumann piece, and I need to quick search for this on YouTube so we can listen to it. You know, it's weird. I used to have all these pieces for these reviews. They're all on a CD, but now I can't even play them. Gotta do things a little differently. Gotta be flexible, right? All right, let's see. How young was 68 number 9? Okay, I think I've got it here. What is the opening key or the home key of this piece? Can you tell by the anyway? Not quite F major. It's the other one. D minor, yeah. D minor. In fact, I don't know about your score, but does the first measure, the left hand, does it have a treble clef like right there? Yeah, that's really sneaky, isn't it? Again, we're confronted with how long do you suspect most of these each of these phrases is?
4. It was 4.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say 4. And do you know why? Because if you just look at the first 8 measures, we have an idea. Yum, dum, da, 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 da. And then you see in measure 5, it starts over again. So that's kind of, because I see that parallel relationship, I'm going to say that those are 2 separate phrases. Because in measure 5, the melody comes back again. Yum, dum, da, 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 da. And so that tips me off, and I'm thinking, probably 4 measure phrases. Because I see that parallel construction at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze 4-bar phrases. And let's see. No, at least in your score, I don't think you have repeat signs, but you have these double bars. Do you? Yeah. So then we have this, and then we have Now, I'm going to try to head off something that I could see as a potential problem right at the beginning. The B, this middle section here, the B section. I've got two 4-bar phrases, which is what is written in your score. But can you take a look? I don't know if you have the measures numbered, but like starting, if you can you compare measures 13 through 16 with measures 9 through 12? In other words, these two phrases. Do you see any difference? I don't think I do either. Which means we can conclude that this phrase is actually just a what of this phrase? A written out repeat, right? And written out repeats don't need to be graphed. They don't affect our form. So really what I could do, since the second phrase in the middle there is a written out repeat, I could do this. Could I not? I think a big key to this form is just recognizing that the B section, the middle section, is really just one 4-bar phrase that's written out repeated. But that's all it is. And so if I start putting measure numbers on my graph now, I have 1, 5, 9, but I could also put what measure number here? 13? And then I think the others would be, what, 17 and 21? Starting measure numbers for these final phrases. Yeah. So this one is just a little unique because, but we've dealt with written out repeats before. We had an assignment that involved a lot of that. If I'm labeling the phrases now with lowercase letters, this would be A. What would you label the second phrase? A prime. I would, because of that parallel construction we talked about in the melody. Then this phrase, you definitely would have to label B, right? It's nothing like the beginning, or the, yeah, it's just bum, 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 bum. It's a little more jaunty, if you will. Now, I don't know if you heard this from the first hearing, but this phrase here, starting at measure 17, what could you label that? Is it anything like these? Yeah, it is.
It's just the bass.
Yeah, the melody, though, went to the left hand in measure 17. I better play this again, but you'll hear that. And so, because it is like this, the melody's there, but it's not exactly like it, so I'm going to label this a double prime. And then what about this phrase? A triple prime, because what happens in the last phrase? Well, the melody is found in both hands at the same time. It's a little sneaky, that Schumann, but if you listen to it, I want to, you know, it's only a minute and a half. Let's listen to it again now that we're finding some things out about this. This is the end of the first. Now the second phrase. Parallel to the first. task of identifying keys and cadences. We know that the opening key, the original key anyways, is D minor. And if you look at the last chord in measure 4, that half note chord which terminates the phrase, because both hands are in treble clef, it's an A, C sharp, E chord, which makes it a 5 chord, and that makes this cadence a half cadence in D minor. Okay. Jump ahead to measure 8. That's the last measure of phrase 2. Both hands are in treble clef. You see how we have a D minor triad right there? Now the chord right before it, it looks like a funky 5. I don't know if I have there's a note in that A chord that I've got in the top note. I have it marked as an escape tone. In fact, there's an F. You see the second chord in measure 8? It's got A, C sharp, and instead of E, it's got an F. I got that F marked as an escape tone, a non-chord tone. But really, it's like 5 going to 1. So I've got a PAC in D minor. What happens to the key starting at measure 9? Okay, yeah, and well, I don't know if I want to split hairs too much here. It actually technically doesn't modulate, it just changes mode. D is still the tonic, but what happens when you get to measure 9? It changes to major. Okay? So the tonic hasn't moved, so technically it's not modulation, but we call that a change of mode. It's going from the minor mode to the major mode with the same tonic. Okay? And all we have to do is identify, you can look at the cadence chord at the end of measure 12, or you can look at the last chord in measure 16. It's the same one. Do you see how the left hand and then the right hand also have A, C sharp, and E? That's a 5 chord in D major. So I'm going to say it's a half cadence in D. Last 2 phrases are back in D minor. And we have a half cadence here. And we have the same type of cadence that we had in measure 8. At the very end, we've got escape tone in the 5 chord. So I have this label as a PAC in D. In terms of capital letter labels, is this just going to be a straight AB? That's it? No. Because we have material stated, we have contrasting material or digressive material, and then material returns. Beginning material comes back. So it looks like we're going to have something like A, and we're going to have B, and we're going to have A prime. Why should I label this one capital A prime? Because these are not exactly the same as those, which was A. Big A. Now I don't know yet if I want to call this a rounded binary or a ternary. See, with the ABA label, capital ABA, I'm confronted with that decision. And so which section of the form do I look at to tell whether it's rounded binary or ternary? Do I go to the very first phrase and do I scrutinize the first phrase and say, well, it's got to be ternary? No, that's ridiculous, right? You go to the B section. Go to the B section. All right? What are the 3 items of criteria that we check out? By the way, these 3 terms will be asked of you on the exam. One is, okay, what is harmonic independence? What did you say? Length. And what's the middle one? Motivic autonomy. Those 3 terms you have to know. Okay? So let's talk about the length. I know there's a written out repeat, but that doesn't count. It doesn't change or add to our growth of form. So really, how much actual substantial musical material is there? There's only 4 bars. So what is that a check for rounded binary or ternary? That's a check for rounded binary, right? Because it's small. It's short compared to the first section. Motivic autonomy? That's pretty different. Yeah. Well, that's not really anything, I don't think that's really anything like the beginning, which is slower in legato. So motivically speaking, I would put a check for terminated. Now, harmonic independence. Kind of like we have a different key, but the tonic hasn't really changed, just the mode has. And the mode is definitely, a change of mode is an element of contrast. But then again, what kind of cadence do we have here? Just a weak cadence. I wonder if I have in my notes that I could see it both ways. And so if this were on a test, I might give you credit for ternary and or rounded binary. Me personally, because this cadence is so weak and it makes it feel like, how could this B section stand alone? You know, especially with that half cadence. Bum ba dum bum ba da bum 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 ba dum bum ba da bum bum ba dum bum ba da bum ba dum bum ba dum bum. Does that sound like a self-sustaining piece? Just that much? I don't know, not really to me with the half cadence. So I actually have another check for rounded. And so I consider this piece to be a rounded binary, not a ternary. Okay. Now, whether or not you call it a rounded binary or ternary, we have to call it sectional versus continuous. Let's look right here. Would you say this whole form is harmonically sectional or continuous? Sectional. Sectional. Because there is a tonic chord ending the first A section in the original key. There's a D minor chord right here, and our home key is D minor. And that's the definition of sectional. When you have a tonic chord in the home key of the piece, terminating the first big part, the first capital A section, that makes the whole form harmonically sectional. Sectional. Okay. So what I have for mine is I have sectional rounded binary. And I guess I do. I ask you, what is the smaller form of just the A section? What would you say? Parallel? I think I heard complete, right? Parallel complete period. Why is it a period? Because this cadence is weaker than this cadence. So these two phrases go together to form a period. I don't, teaching is kind of sometimes balancing a fine line between sounding like a broken record, repeating things umpteen times, but yet repeating it enough times so that it lodges in here and sinks in for you guys. And so I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but hopefully periods and analyzing and labeling periods is almost second nature now. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Okay. You know what? Just for the sake of time, can we maybe skip to the very last page of the review? I don't want to go through a third piece. I'll wait till Friday to do that. Everyone, just look at the instructions. I used to give this actually as a quiz. I seem like I always say that. But it says, for each of the graphs below, identify the form as, and you have to choose one term or phrase from each box. Okay, so I only give you a partial graph in example 1. And, well, you can see the cadences there. And you can see the uppercase letters in bold. Which term would you pick out of the first box? Oh, by the way, it says example one, the home key, the main key is B flat major. So which term would you pick out of the first box? Anybody? Yeah, continuous, right? Because it doesn't end, the first A section doesn't end with a tonic chord in the home key of B flat. So if I'm forced to pick a term out of the first box, I would have to say continuous. But now, go into the second box. What phrase or term would you choose out of there?
Simple binary.
Okay, be careful about that. I know we haven't focused on this a lot, but what are your large uppercase capital letters there? A, B, C. Have you ever dealt with a form called ABC? In fact, what did I just get you saying a couple minutes ago about simple binary? Simple binary is either A prime, or AB. So what do I choose for ABC? Not a common form, that's right. I think I mentioned in one class that ABC is not a common form, capital. In fact, I said there's a term for it, it's called through composed. That's not on here, you don't have to worry about that term. But it's not a common form, especially for these short pieces that we get. So I would have to say not a common form for example one. Not a common form. It's not simple binary, it's not rounded binary, it's not a period of any kind, it's not ternary, etc., etc. Okay, maybe, let's do another one again. Example 2. The home key or the main key is C minor. Take a look at the partial but unfinished graph. Most of the graph is there, but take a look at that. And what would you say in terms of a term from the first box? Sectional, continuous, or parallel complete?
Continuous.
Yes, I would say continuous. You are correct. Because the first large A section concludes with an E flat chord, not a C minor triad. So continuous. And then out of the second box, take a look at the large letters. It looks like we have to decide between rounded binary or ternary, because we have capital A, B, A prime. Well, do we have enough information in that B phrase to conclude one way or the other? Well, we don't have a label, a lowercase letter label. So for all we know, the lowercase letter label for that third phrase could be C, which means it would be pretty independent, which means it'd be a check for ternary. But take a look, does that phrase look like it's any longer, or are there any more phrases in the B section than you know? So that's a check for rounded binary. And finally, what kind of cadence do we have and in what key? Half cadence in the home key, that's pretty weak stuff. So I'd have another check for rounded binary. And so I would say the form of example 2, based on the information given in the graph, the best I can conclude would be a continuous rounded binary. Continuous rounded binary. I want to actually, just for kind of like a little break, where did I put that? Probably put it in another folder. I want to give you something. I guess I want to stop. We can finish the, what you call it, next class. We can finish the review next class. I do want to show you this because you guys are now at a point where I think you would get a kick out of and understand some of the things in what's called the music theory song.
Oh.
Do you know what this is? I'll see if I can bring it up on YouTube after you get the music. You got to look at the words, and you got to look at how the words match with the melody. You've heard of this one?
I heard it back when I didn't understand anything.
When you didn't understand anything.
Yep.
This goes to the tune of chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Okay, let's see. All right, don't fail me now, YouTube. Let's see. The Music Fury song. Just a little taste, you see in the first measure where it says octave moving to the median, the first two measures. Do you see how the first interval is indeed an octave? And do you see how we're in the key of C major? What's the melody note in measure 2? It's the third scale degree, which is the median. So there's a lot of, I guess, text, wordplay with the music. A lot of that matches together. So let's see if we can hear it.
Octave moving to the median, major 6 stepping down to do, major 2nds being sung by a choir, chromatic alterations of the scale, diatonic scale, descending scale to minor 3rd, major 6 to 5, 7 of 4.
You guys know what a 5, 7, and 4 is?
Major 2nds with their ears open wide will hear a pretty trio tonight. There's minor 7s in the bridge. There's also lots of minor 2nds in the bridge. And every minor 6 is gonna try to hit a supertonic over 5 of 5. A motive used to build this simple phrase. Major 6, 5, 1's down to 1. Although this phrase rises to a high leading tone, drop a perfect fifth, meet the Flintstones, sing a perfect 4th to 1.
Oh, I don't like that. Isn't that clever? I like the meet the Flintstones. That's your descending perfect fifth. I gotta remind my freshmen about that. They have an interval on their oral skills test. So I know it's a little early for Christmas music, but hey, we're not going to be here in December, so I thought I'd share this with you just because you've got secondary dominance now and you know all this stuff, and I think it's pretty easy. All right, so let's stop there for today. We'll resume and finish the final exam review on Friday. That'll be our last class. So have a good rest of your day.